we have to think about the serious economic impact of the globalization process and the contemporary experiences in connection with the explosive COVID situation. What exactly does it mean that when we say that COVID is actually an expression of the new globalized world? It is the impact of globalization that actually resulted in the global spread of coronavirus within a matter of a few weeks. It started in China early in December. It reached Europe sometime in February or early January. Then it went on to reach the United States by early March, reached countries like India by the end of March, and now every continent in the world has been affected by this very serious disease without any kind of remedies right now. It is something which is quite unique in the history of the world, because when we have a kind of a disease that is spreading in one part of the world, like what has happened in the case of Ebola in Africa, it spread in a few countries and was contained in that particular part of the world. And like earlier SARS and other H1N1 and that kind of diseases also, they were actually being able to be controlled in various parts of the world. But now, in the case of corona, it has become a global pandemic spreading all over the world, affecting every part of the world within a few weeks' time. Why is it happening that way? It is basically because we are an integrated world. We are connected through a large number of links from country to country, from place to place, from region to region. And this global linkages in the matter of supply chains, in the matter of transportation, in the matter of people moving from one place to the other place, and that is what is called globalization. That you see the best profit in any part of the world. So wherever profit can be maximized, capital flows into that part of the world. And naturally, the kind of barriers, economic barriers, social barriers that was available, that kept various nations separate, were being removed. And that is what is called globalization. But the result is that when globalization process became a very powerful process in the last 30-40 years in the world, the basic promise of the globalization process is that it will become a leveling process when every poor people will be lifted. They will be lifted out of poverty. They will become very strong. They will become much better, financially much better. One of the theoreticians of globalization has said this is a kind of a wave, a kind of a wave in the sea that lifts every vehicle, every vessel. That is true. When the water level rises, every ship rises. But what actually has happened in the world in the last 30 years is that certain individuals became extremely rich. That is why you have the large number of multi-billionaires in the world today. And at the same time, substantial number of ordinary people, their life never really improved. They remained where they were, or they went down in the poverty scale. So one of the most important aspects of globalization in the past 30 years is that the inequality between people became much more wider. Of course, world has never been a place for equal playing for everybody. It was never a level playing field for every people in the world. There were people who were poor, there were people who were middle class, there were people who were rich. But now the divide between the rich and poor has become extremely wide. A very famous French economist has made a study about it, and he has given the name Capitalism in 21st Century to his book, because he has found that just like Marx has predicted, the kind of social divisions, the kind of social friction is becoming acute nowadays. So, what is the remedy for this? The remedy is that we should think of more serious taxation on the people who have much more resources. But what actually is happening? Big corporates, big companies, big persons with huge resources, they can always keep their capital moving from one place to the other place. It is easier nowadays to avoid taxation in any country. For example, big companies like Microsoft, Facebook, Google, many others, they are American-based companies, but substantial part of their actual revenues are kept in other countries. In countries like Ireland, where the taxation is very low. In certain islands where there is no tax. So, this avoidance of taxation has been being practiced by the big companies for a long time. This is what we have seen in that documents called Panama Papers. Panama Papers is a set of documents that was given to newspapers by certain individuals. It's a company which was actually helping very big people, very resourceful people to avoid taxation by spreading their assets worldwide. And who are the people who are named in this Panama Papers? There are prime ministers in it, there are presidents in this, there are very royal people in it, there are very big players in the world, people who are extremely resourceful. They can afford to pay taxes, but they will not pay taxes. The joke is that taxes are for the poor people to pay. Rich people never pay taxes, because you can avoid to pay taxes with the kind of technologies available to you. That is about the experience of globalization. It has destroyed the possibility of building an equal world, destroyed the possibility of some kind of equality between peoples of various countries. It is into this situation that the new pandemic has arrived. It was a disease actually spread all over the world by the jet set classes, people who are traveling in flights by aeroplanes from country to country, from city to city, from place to place, people who are constant flyers. They started flying from Wuhan, they reached New York, they reached London, they reached Paris, they reached Bombay, and they spread the disease all over the world. They are rich people, they are resourceful people. And who are the real victims of this disease? In every part of the world, the poorest sections of the people are affected by this disease, because you cannot have social distancing in a place like the Arabi colony, because in a small room, dozens of people are living. The poorest people in New York, the poorest people in Bombay, the poorest people in every part of the world, they are the people who are actually affected substantially by this new disease, which was not brought about by them. It was not their discovery. It was a discovery of the traveling classes. It was the discovery of the rich classes who brought it to various places, who distributed among all over the world. Now, ICMR has come to the conclusion that even in India, the majority of those who are affected by the disease, despite the lockdown, are the people who are at the lowest strata of society. That is one aspect of this thing. And the second aspect of this globalized disease and its impact is the kind of lockdown procedures. In various parts of the country, we have seen the countries locking themselves down, cities shutting down, all kinds of operations stopping, every kind of economic activity stopping, people stopping going out to do any work. And who are the people who are able to work from home? An auto rickshaw driver cannot work from home. He has to go out into the street, meet the people and do the work. And the government said no auto rickshaws any longer. And is it possible for a lorry driver to work from home? A lorry driver has to drive the lorry from place to place, and they have been completely stopped from working into the street. Is it possible for a bus driver to do that? No. So, most of the ordinary people, most of the people who are actually forced to go into the field to find a living for themselves and their families, they were removed from the workforce, and they are almost 80% of the total workforce in the world. In India, it is much bigger. The result is that when you had decided to lock down the country, say for example in India, what has happened is that just a minuscule section of the population could actually afford to keep themselves away from the office. They were paid employees, or they were government employees whose salary is always safe, or they were people with big resources. But substantial number of people like the laborers, the ordinary workers in the field, the manufacturing people, all that kind of people had to go out into the field to work, but when they were not allowed to work, they had no way to survive. That is what has been witnessed in various countries, including India, when after 2-3 weeks of lockdown, people started, people became very extremely restive. They started moving from one place to the other, even walking. From Kerala, people were trying to walk to Bengal. From Maharashtra, people were trying to UP. That was the situation because people had no way to survive. So that is the second aspect of this thing, that when the new process of lockdown has started, only the middle class and upper middle class and the rich classes were able to afford the difficulties of the new situation where you are asked to work from home. A large number, substantial number of the people were instead thrown out of their job. They had no resources, no money, nothing, and they were starving. The government refused to give them any support. That is the second aspect of this terrible situation, that most of the unorganized sections of people, most of the ordinary sections of the working classes, they were completely left without any resources. And what is going to be the real impact of this thing? The World Bank has said that, in a recent report, the World Bank has said that almost 3.2% of the global economy will come down. 3.2% of the global GDP is a substantial amount of, such huge amount of money. And such a decline happens, the World Bank has also said that the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, at the bottom of the spread, they will be extremely affected. When a building collapses, those people that at the lowest level on the street, they are going to be affected. But GDP, but at the same time, World Bank is much more liberal about it. The Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, another very important organization, OECD, according to their calculation which was released the other day, the decline is going to be almost 5% of the global GDP. That means that this is something unprecedented in the history of the world. In the last 100 years, when the records were available to us about economic disasters, nothing similar has happened ever. And what is going to be the impact of all these things to our life, to our economy? According to this calculation, as well as the predictions from rating agencies like Standard & Poor, Fitch and others, in India, during this year 2020, the decline in economy will be around 7 to 8% of the GDP. 7 to 8% of the GDP decline is translated into millions and millions of people being out of the job. Millions of middle class people going down to the poorest sections of the population. Millions of people becoming below the poverty line people again. In the last 10, 15, 20 years, because of substantial efforts on the part of the various governments, large number of people have been lifted up from the BPL level. Now, much more people are now being pushed down to the BPL level, even from the middle classes and lower middle classes sections of Indian population. This decline is going to affect every part of India, every part of the world. And recently the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, they came to the conclusion that going by the present situation in the world food security situation, the food availability, the distribution and other calculation, they have said that many parts of the world, especially Africa, South Asia, Latin America, that is 3 continents, there is going to be famines by the end of this year. Mexico is going to face, Venezuela is going to face, Brazil is going to face, many other Latin American countries are going to face. In Asia, especially South Asia, a number of countries are going to face extreme hunger, lack of food, and this is going to happen in various parts of Africa also. Nobody is going to help them. Nobody is going to support them, because the kind of globalization world, the world of globalization has completely broken down. Nobody cares for anybody else. When things were going well, Americans were coming to India, Japanese were coming to India, everybody was coming to India and other parts of the world looking for profits. When there is no profit to be picked up, or when there is a possibility of danger when you are going out to pick up the profits, people stop coming, people stop investing. So this is going to be a period of extreme shortage of investment, extreme shortage of money supply in the economy in large number of developing economies, poor countries in the world, with very serious impact on the lives of the ordinary people. And the governmental support system, not only in India, in various parts of the world, governments have said that we are going to provide substantial support to the ordinary people. Take the example of India. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said that on May 12th, he declared that 10% of the Indian GDP is going to be converted into provide support for the ordinary people of India. He mentioned a number of also 20 lakh crores, that is 2 million crores of rupees will be given to the Indian people as support. But actually, when calculations were made by the opposition parties, it was found that it is not 20 lakh, but only just 20% of it, that is 1 to 2 lakh crores. But even that money is now, after 1 month, it is very clear that even that money is not really being distributed among the people because of various bottlenecks. So the kind of governmental support that was promised to Indian people and people in various other parts of the world is not forthcoming. So the experience that we have seen from the major disaster of the globalized world is that globalization is actually a situation where when you are rich and powerful, you try to exploit the world. When you find the signs of trouble, you withdraw, and you leave the majority of the people in extremely great distress. The process has completely failed. The globalization process has completely failed. It has helped large number of new multi-billionaires to emerge. It has also helped large number of poor people to become poorer and more destitute, as we are witnessing in India and other parts of the world today. Thank you.